Hey, y'all. My name is Jeff Nowak, NOLA.com's digital sports producer. And I just got some fun new live annotating software and I wanted to try it out. So I'm going to hit you with a quick film study video from week 9 ahead of tomorrow's matchup with the San Francisco 49ers. There's no Alabama or LSU Alabama today, so I figured I'd throw this down there to give people something to watch and me something to do. So basically, I'm going to keep these concepts pretty simple, but one of the things I really did want to look at was how the Saints used Michael Thomas in some high-low and shallow crossing concepts that worked against the Bucks that have been not ineffective, but limited in how they were able to use them based on personnel. So I'm going to go through a few plays against the Bucks, and I'm going to show you some plays that they used in the past few years that came back against the Bucks and worked. So the first play we're going to look at is early in the game. Yeah, it's the first drive, third play. This is the play that Drew Brees kind of got flushed out of the pocket and kind of found Josh Hill on a scramble play. It was not obviously the design. This play was designed to go to Alvin Kamara on the wheel. I'll show you what the routes were supposed to be. See if I can get my shortcuts right. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so basically what you're going to have, you have Michael Thomas here. This is Adam Troutman. He's going to be running kind of a clear out corner. He's really not a factor in the play. He's just trying to draw a defender. You're going to have Alvin Kamara coming at, he's going to flip over to this side, and then he's going to ship down on the wheel. And this is the route you're trying to hit. And how you try to get him open is you have Michael Thomas who's going to work under and come in here on this, what I call a stab route. You could call it a hitch, but it's really not a hitch. It's really, you're trying to sell the slant and then just kind of cut down toward the line, give Brees a safe check down, and also create traffic in the middle of the field with Jared Cook taking this shallow and ending up right about here. So you're basically just flooding this area and creating traffic, which will make it difficult for a linebacker to track Kamara out of the backfield. This doesn't end up working because of the pressure upfield, which forces Brees to kind of swing this way out of the pocket instead of sinking and hitting Kamara, like similar to the play against the Lions when he hit Kamara on an out and up. He also can't hit Michael Thomas, who is wide open in the middle of the field because there's so much congestion here. He can't get a safe throw off. But Josh Hill, who ends up, I want to say here. Yeah. This is just a good example of him understanding Drew Brees and leaking out, and it's a nice little play. But you can see already the difficulty that putting Michael Thomas in this route creates. And I'll show you, I'll stop drawing for a second and let you watch the play. So you can see shifts Kamara over to the opposite side of the play. And I want you to watch Jason Pierre-Paul. He tries to jam Michael Thomas, but he can't because Michael Thomas is probably the best in the NFL at just fighting through with his hands. So he gets a clean release there, and you can see what's happening. You have Jared Cook coming over here. You have Michael Thomas kind of stabbing underneath him. You have Josh Hill just trying to drag a defender. And you're talking about this guy. When you're seeing Josh Hill, you're trying to get him to account for an extra defender who can now not sink to cover that wheel route. And if this play had time to develop, it probably works. But as you can see, you end up with a pretty scary sight there. And it's kind of amazing that Brees is able to escape this at all. And you have a play rusher upfield too. So there's really no time for this to come open, even though it really is an attractive look to try to hit. Michael Thomas, because he beats the jam by Pierre-Paul, he's wide open here, but you can see there's just, too many bodies to try to make that throw. So Brees kind of just takes this space, and you can see Josh Hill does a good job adjusting for him. I thought he was going to run here. His long run of the season is 2 yards. I thought he was going to try to make it 3. He had space if he wanted to get to the edge, but you can see, even not involved in the play, the linebackers are sucked way up. So there is this really big kind of window for Josh Hill to kind of sit in and be a target for Brees to not have to try to use his legs. As you can see, Alvin Kamara wins on this route, but there's just no way for Brees to get it up there on the run. So Brees takes really the only option available, and it ends up working. But that's the general concept I'm going to look at in terms of how are they using those kind of high-low, those shallow cross concepts with Michael Thomas that weren't working before, and why weren't they? You can see from this angle the pressure just gets there way too fast. He's trying to get to that wheel route, he just can't do it, and it's a really nice play by Breeze. But okay, we're gonna go to the next example, which is another one that doesn't go for a lot, but it actually targets Michael Thomas. Next drive, Saints are already up 7-0. They're moving. This is more of a hitch than a stab because he's coming from the outside and he's like just getting into that quick slant and coming upfield. And what you're going to see here is very similar to the last play. They're trying to beat the outside corner by isolating him with the because of the traffic underneath is drawing defenders inside. They're showing a cover three defenders in coverage, and these guys are going to drop out and kind of funnel everything inside, and they're going to hope the rush can get home and the linebackers are going to sink. Now, what you're seeing here is the Saints doing what they did later in the game successfully, which was target the Bucs corners on double moves, specifically Jamel Dean. You're going to have Jared Cook kind of taking the over. You're going to have Michael Thomas coming in on the stab or the hitch, and you're going to have Latavius Murray kind of leaking out into the flat just to give an outlet. And you can see Breeze is trying to pump this double move here. He's trying to sell this curl route and force Jamel Dean to kind of take that step up. And then Emmanuel Sanders is going to finish upfield and ideally be wide open because Jamel Dean takes a step the wrong way. That's not what happens. Jamel Dean kind of sits in his zone as he should because he knows he has no help over the top. Michael Thomas and Jared Cook kind of draw those defenders to the middle, but as you can see, they sink, and it allows for a pretty easy pitch and catch for 5 yards. You can see they're sinking deep. The Bucs played a lot of really soft zone coverage in this game, and I think that's a strategy that worked earlier in the season, so they're emulating that. But with Michael Thomas underneath, that becomes a much more difficult thing to do. You don't want to give up easy, quick throws to Michael Thomas for 5 yards that he can turn into 6, 8, 12, and he's just going to pound you to death underneath, and that'll eventually force you to sink up. As you can see, I mean, look at the space that the linebackers sink to. This is a 2nd and 8. This is where the ball was snapped from. No, that's the wrong line. Hold on. It was here. So the linebackers are sinking immediately to 6, 8 yards. So, I mean, you never go broke taking a profit, and that's what the Saints do here. Jamel Dean does a good job here. He doesn't bite on this double move. This is where Sanders makes that cut. And, even with the sinking linebackers, Cook has a bit of a seam here for Breeze to try to fit a ball in. He doesn't do it, and I would argue that's the right decision at this point in the game, in the red zone, especially they're coming off of a score. Their defense is playing incredibly well. You just want to keep stacking first downs and force their defense to cover. So he just says, okay, easy money. I'll take it. Get Michael Thomas involved. Those are like body blows in a fight, right? You're trying to set that example. You're trying to set that muscle memory for the Bucs that they know they cannot sink to a depth that will allow them to sit back on those intermediate routes, the digs and the deep overs, because they can't allow the Saints to pick up 6, 7, 8 yards of play and expect to win this game. And when I say that, they're emulating teams that had success against it. That's just from this season alone. They're going back and they're looking at the Panthers game. They're looking at the Packers game. They're looking at the Raiders game. Teams that had relative success slowing down the passing attack. And they're emulating that to try to have that success. You got to remember they were coming in off a short week, so they didn't have a ton of time to create a very elaborate defensive scheme against what the Saints are going to try to do. So here's a quick example of what the Panthers did in a very similar situation. You have Traquan Smith kind of taking this stab route, and you have, I want to say that's Marquez Callaway taking the corner, and you have Deontay Harris kind of clearing out, and the bubble screen by Kamara coming over in the jet motion. And you'll see a very similar strategy. The linebackers sink way, way deep off of the snap, and they take everything away, and Drew Brees is forced to check it down. Look how deep they have sunk immediately off the snap. They're just creating a wall because they want this ball to go short. They want Drew Brees to have to check it down to Tre'Quan Smith and deep in his own territory. And you can't make this throw with a linebacker sinking to that depth and with a safety over the top. You just can't do it. And you have the outside routes covered with these sinking defenders. And it's a very effective way to play this design by the Saints. Yeah, so as you can see, I mean, there's nothing open. And they just say, hey, if you want to throw to Tre'Quan Smith, take it. That is the guy we are okay with if that's the guy you go to beat us. And Brees is more than happy to do that, but you don't want to let Michael Thomas get going. He's the guy who you have to account for. And when you put him in that scenario, you end up with a much more difficult coverage. But here's what you end up with later in the game as the Saints get more aggressive in using that shallow cross concept with a high-low built into it. And by that, I mean you're creating a multi-level read for Brees. And here's where you have those body blows start to pay off in that you're going to be a little bit more aggressive. And you see the Bucs come out in what is either a cover 1 or a cover 3. Either way, you have a middle of the field closed look. And that means that you have a safety in between the hash marks, and you expect him to sink somewhere in the middle. Unless they roll into a different coverage late, this is what you're going to see. And you're not going to be able to run post routes, seam routes, anything that breaks to the middle, this guy should be able to take away. So you're going to want to target corners. You're going to want to target digs early, maybe a fade to the outside. And it's going to depend on what these guys end up doing. Typically, when a defender's lined up inside, they're trying to play man coverage because they're going to try to force those outside receivers to the edges, knowing that sideline is an extra defender for them. They're also not super concerned about Adam Troutman on the bottom. They're not really concerned about Alvin Kamara at the top. As good as Alvin Kamara is, he doesn't get targeted on fades. So they know that the action's going to come in the middle of the field. That's why they're setting up inside. But by going 5 wide, you force these receivers to be accounted for, and that means that you have a single safety deep, and there are still only 1, 2, 3. There are still only 6 guys in the box. So whatever ends up happening in the middle of the field, you know that there's going to be tension in the secondary. What the Saints end up doing is they run that similar look to before, in that you have the crossing combination with Michael Thomas kind of breaking off what looks like a slant into that little stab. You have Jared Cook kind of coming in behind it on the dig for that high-low. And then you have Taysom Hill running the deep over. So you basically end up with a 2-level read here based on what these defenders are doing. If the safety crashes on Taysom Hill, then you end up with a wide open Jared Cook coming in behind it on the dig. If the safety sits deep and the linebacker sinks on his hook zone, then you end up with a check down to Michael Thomas and you move on to the next play. When you have Michael Thomas in there, it becomes very difficult for this linebacker to trust his eyes. This is the defender that should be accounting for Michael Thomas, knowing that one way or the other he's coming through. And you'll see how effective this is at opening up the defense. So stop it there. Like I said, you have the 2 outside routes kind of holding this defender. So he has to at least account for it. You have the same thing on the opposite side. They're not paying a ton of attention to that. As you can see, they're both looking in. But it does keep them wide, which opens up space in the middle of the field. This defender is kind of carrying Cook upfield, and you have the strong safety spying that. And then you have the 2 linebackers sinking off their mark to account for what's happening in the middle of the field. And this defender is buzzing to the flat. There's no one to buzz to, so I'm not sure where he's going. But that allows Michael Thomas to get a clean release right here. And that holds, I want to say that's Levante David, in coverage just enough that he can't sink to take away this space. I know I'm drawing a lot, but just know that this is where the ball's going. And this is the route that creates that space, because he has to account for Michael Thomas. And as you saw against the Panthers, that wasn't the case. They were more than happy to sink as deep as they needed to take away those intermediate routes. And when Michael Thomas is on the field, you can't do that. So I want you to watch this area of the field, and you'll see exactly what happens once Taysom Hill clears that zone, and you end up with a very attackable zone here. Breeze makes a good throw. Taysom Hill makes a nice catch, and this is just the Saints out executing the Bucs at every level, because they didn't cover this and they didn't cover this. I mean, that's the incredible thing here is when you end up with multiple guys wide open on a play, the play worked. Even if the defender makes an incredible read and sinks, you still have Michael Thomas open for an easy 6, 7, 8 yard gain, and that's just great play design, great execution, and it's just nice to see Michael Thomas back on the field and having that sort of impact just by being there. He wasn't that involved. He only played, I want to say, 60% of the snaps, and even the snaps he was in there, like this one, for instance, he was more of a decoy than a weapon. And, you know, if this game was a bit tighter, you might have seen him be the initial read on a lot more plays. But I think the Saints were a lot more concerned, especially once this game got out of reach, with making sure Michael Thomas got out of that game healthy and happy with how he performed. You know, you didn't want him to have a setback and all of a sudden you're looking at another 3-4 weeks without your best player. Just not what you want to have. And there it is. Like I said, it is a concept that I expect you'll see a lot more of going forward. It's the shallow cross with a high-low behind it, and it worked like a charm in Week 9. And as long as Michael Thomas is on the field, I expect it'll continue to work. And I think it will open up a lot of opportunities for Jared Cook that did not exist because he runs a lot of two-man combinations with Michael Thomas. But that's it. I hope the screencast software worked as well as it seemed to. We will find out in the post. If there's anything y'all want me to take a look at, feel free to reach out. I am on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. So feel free to reach out. DMs are always open. And I'll see if I can hit you back next week. All right, guys. Peace.